Hello and welcome to Insight Live, the IT Experts Take. I'm Jason Rader, your host, and today we'll be talking about modern workplace, evolution, revolution, and smart pivot strategies. And I've got a couple of really smart guys to have a conversation with today. Let me welcome Joe Flynn and Carmen Taglienti, both distinguished engineers with me here at Insight. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks for having us.
So, modern workplace. We've been saying modern workplace for a long time. So is it still modern? I always kind of like to get that kind of out on the table, right, to start with. When we're talking about modern workplace, Joe, I'd like you to maybe take this one. When we're talking about modern workplace, what do we mean when we say that?
Yeah, I think modern workplace is we're better enabling end users to be more productive, right? But providing them the efficiency, the benefits of doing self-service in a secure way, right? If you think back in the 80s, 90s, right, when a lot of us may have started, early 2000s, we were overly secure. We were very dependent to on-prem that users a lot of times couldn't even right-click on their desktops, and it was pain, frustration. And as we move now for a pandemic, post-pandemic, that hybrid place, end users want to do more, right? We're so used to that cell phone type of experience that everybody wants to do more on their own. They don't want to have to worry about calling someone to allow them. So the modern workplace is leveraging the latest technologies that is allowing the users to do more, but more importantly, do more on their own.
Love it. Carmen, any additional comments there?
No, I think it's great, but I just had just a few things maybe. So I think it forced us to look at what exactly we do every day. So in terms of being in the office, is it that far different from the things that we can accomplish, say, at home in our office or through a connected experience? And I think that's really the key is, looking long and hard at what it is that we expect to do every day. Like some particular positions, maybe you can't, be at home and work because maybe you work at Amazon in the retail site and you're picking and packing items. But the kinds of work in the technology space that we typically are involved with, perhaps it is a logical way to work.
Yeah, and a good point. I think I have been in the same industry for 25 years. And so when I think of my job, I don't necessarily ever have to be at an office, but other folks like an Amazon warehouse or something like that, certainly. And that's an interesting kind of thing that you bring up. Whenever we start to do that, because I think, Joe was kind of referring back to the old, days when we were using Citrix or RDP or something along those lines. And, have we evolved since then? When you do something in any kind of maturity model, first it's, can we do it? And then it's, can we do it better? And then it's sometime, hopefully along there, it's, can we do it securely? So maybe we can kind of unpack those, if you will. So you, Carm, mentioned like these, what can we do? What are some of the kind of newer things that we're getting away with, that we're able to do that we weren't necessarily able to do before? Is there anything kind of exciting related to that?
Well, I think it's just the ability to have access to services that we require, computing facilities, for example. The onslaught of the cloud actually was sort of the beginnings of all of this, which allowed us to be able to access these services without necessarily having to directly connect into a data center. So that's one. The service orientation is another one. So clearly, just sort of the movement more towards service-based or service-oriented architectural approaches allowed us to be able to do a lot more in the grand scheme of things, but also advances in computing technology. So, my laptop, for example, is probably more powerful than the laptops I worked, or than the servers I worked on probably 15 years ago. So that's another thing that allowed us to be able to do this more efficiently. And then network bandwidth, connectivity, and capability also, so we can actually have a seamless experience through the network. And I'll let Joe talk about security because I know we're going to go there eventually. But all of those things just sort of culminated in allowing us to be able to work from home efficiently in these technical kinds of jobs that we do.
How about you, Joe?
Yeah, no, I think he nailed it. I think if you look at what cloud technologies allow us, it's that work from anywhere approach that we didn't think in the past we could do. If you think of many large organizations that were set back in how they do things, they always force people to come into the office. And the pandemic, I think, opened that up for everybody. Is look, this can be done, right? With the deployment of 5G. If you think of most people have cable modems at home that have probably better internet than a lot of times that they're going to have in the office. Moving those services and all of those platforms to a cloud architecture literally allows you to work from home. I found it funny because our marketing team did a slogan once when we talked about modern workplaces. you could work from Mars, right? As long as you had internet connection. And I always laugh because if you think about it, I mean, we're on a plane, we're traveling, we're in a hotel. The moment I get internet connectivity, I'm pretty much working. Like there's nothing stopping me at that point. Maybe the experience may be a little poor on a plane, but ultimately I can still do my job.
No, I love that. And just like you, I've been really surprised. They've recently upgraded the infrastructure on a lot of airlines. It's lightning fast. I'm doing like video calls and streaming on a plane, stuff that I would have never, ever considered possible or prudent in the past. And I think you bring up another kind of main enticement to the whole concept in general from a business perspective is that I can immediately get to work. I mean, literally, I've traveled almost my entire career. And getting on a plane used to be like a work stop. I mean, I'd be able to type out some emails to send once I got connectivity when I got off. But now, full featured, full capability, just about anywhere that I'm at in a car, while I'm driving around. Capable, obviously not at the same time as I'm driving around, but you know what I mean.
That's good and bad, though, right? Sometimes being on a plane, taking the break is a good thing too.
True. Or driving while we're on a conference call. I won't claim that I've ever done, but maybe
I'll quit doing video while I'm driving because I took a lot of heat that time. But one of the things I think as we open it up, obviously, like we kind of already alluded to, the warehouse workers probably aren't the right folks for this, but there were other kind of core groups, and we kind of alluded to it with you talking about your laptop, Carm, where there just wasn't enough horsepower or responsiveness for those groups to kind of leverage something like this. Developers kind of come to mind. Now I feel like, those folks can do what they do. And there was also a reason that they wanted to be kept within the confines of the organization from a security perspective as well. Anybody want to comment related to that?
Yeah, so I think the security side of it, I think, which is really important, and this usually follows advances or innovation technology. It's usually initially we just think about capabilities. It's like, wow, we have all these cool new capabilities, and then we start to think about what are the implications of those technologies or innovations, and security is just one of them. So as we think about advances in computing power and network connectivity to be able to work from home, then security comes to mind. So I think a real big benefit for a lot of organizations was it made them think longer and harder about their security profile and also their surface area. So because those are really big concerns for organizations. So if you're going to allow this kind of working from home model, for example, then you have to really know what your security posture is, and then be able to track it, refine it, and make sure that it is not only a good experience for the end user, for your employees, but also you're protecting the organizational assets. And I think we've taken a really big step forward in that. It's not just the technological step; it's also the security profile step.
Yeah, I think now that let's talk about security, because this is something that I care a lot about. I know Joe does as well. It used to be, can we do it? Like I mentioned before, that from a security perspective, but then you had a lot of reliance on the end user to do the right thing. Now there's just such a full feature set of capabilities. DLP, I mean, you can set it up where they can't right click and copy things out like on purpose, like where Joe mentioned you couldn't right click before, but right click functionality wasn't there. But now I can keep people from copying and pasting from one application to another if it's a protected environment. There's lots of really good and solid security capabilities. But I also want to say, with the caveat to that, is no tech takes the place, to your point, Carm, of knowing the stuff that you've got, the data that you need to protect, classifying it appropriately, because these things just don't accidentally happen, right? The DLP, you got to tell DLP what it needs to protect, what it needs to encrypt, what it needs to restrict. It doesn't automatically know those things. So I think it's, although the tech is super advanced and revolutionary to a degree, it doesn't discount the fact that there's some blocking and tackling from a security perspective you still have to do to get this in place to leverage the technology the best.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think one thing I'd like to add to that, I mean, keep in mind, we all have to agree the technologies have vastly improved. And if you think of the companies like a Microsoft and others, they're investing billions of dollars in R&D just in the security side of it, because there's a lot at stake just for them. But on the flip side, as much as you said, Jason, as much as we can enable from a technology, whether it's DLP, CASBs, those type of technologies, it still also comes to end user adoption, end user training on what are security practices they should be following, because it starts with them, right? It starts with, I mean, you always say protect at the door, protect the identity, protect the user. they're the ones that are going to most times be the entry into an environment. And I think adoption is key. I mean, that's not technical, right? That's not process. That's just simply learning and teaching the best practices to an end user.
Yeah, and I think I'll just add to that just quickly is I'm thinking about sort of the pendulum swing. So it's like we respond to the advances in technology or innovation with security, and sometimes maybe we overdo it just a little bit, make things a little bit too restrictive. But I think it also lends to the adaptability of organizations. So understand how your employees actually do work, and then what are the right set, I'll call it right, but appropriate set of security capabilities to put in place to allow them to do their job. And I think that's important as well. So it's not just sort of locking things down, but it's also making sure that we are doing the right thing in terms of productivity for the organization.
Completely agree. Draconian security policies, just because there's a checkbox doesn't mean we should check it, right? It's we've got to understand the user. And again, some really brilliant technology can turn off a user base if you don't implement it appropriately. Again, just checking a box, even if it's for the good of the company, without awareness and embracing the user population, those constituents that you have with, hey, here's this change, here's why, and here's how it's going to affect your workflow. That's a way better way to have that embracement of the overall technology and security in general, is because I've seen really brilliant technology fail because of just the way that it was pushed out.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So, we deal with a lot of clients in doing what we do. Tell me some of the things that the benefits of leveraging a modern workplace. What are some of the things that are realized from a business perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in here. I think one of the first things you realize is just think of new users, right? The time it takes to get new users productive. But back in the day, you had to be in an office. You had to walk up to the person, to setting up their new device, or a lot of times getting their new device was hours long across multiple resources. And if you tie that into a cost factor and productivity loss, I mean, that's drastic. Now, these modern technologies that are cloud-based, you can ship a device directly to a user. They could potentially be up and productive within minutes. So now you have a brand new user that's basically online working. But now you could take it one step further with where the technology is going around self-service. If you think of a lot of the automation and capabilities and the low-code, no-code apps, where now we can say, hey, this new user, you have to do A, B, C, and D. And then as you're doing those, we're going to potentially assign you other tasks or direct you to other places to streamline the onboarding and get them productive a lot sooner. We see it, right? Even parts of what we do today as we improve is the onboarding process can be long. And how do you decrease that time and get users working and more involved with their peers and what they're supposed to do faster is a better investment in my point of view.
Yeah, that agility is key, especially what about M&A activity and those kinds of things? I mean, you can take something that took months and turn it around in days now, enabling an entire new user base instead of the onesies and twosies kind of thing of the typical entry into an organization. So yeah, I mean, that is literally a game changer.
Go ahead. I mean, M&A, I think, is a great conversation. Sorry, Carm. Just look at the new cloud PC models. Like before, I would have to probably migrate a user's machine to my network, to my domain. But now I can technically go into a company where we're acquiring or we're both merging and give them a cloud PC that has full access to our apps, full access to our network while the team is working on their PC. So there is zero loss of productivity, probably a better experience overall because they're being pulled into the new environment right away.
Yeah, I think that's a great point around productivity. And I think productivity also can be measured by just how effective can you be during the workday. So we talked about the commute cycles and how long it takes to, say, get to work, where you can wake up in the morning, just kind of roll into your office and start working. But it also allows you to be able to increase the amount of time that you can coverage without, say, working longer hours. So I work with folks on the West Coast. I'm in Boston, or in Europe or Asia, and I can, wake up at the right time or get online at the right time to be able to talk to those teams that are across the world without putting in a 16-hour day. And I can do things around the house because I don't have the commute in the middle. So it allows me to be able to sort of work my 3 hours, for people on the West Coast, and then I can, take a break, walk the dogs, do what I need to do, and then come back and, work with people maybe in Asia or in other parts of the world. So that productivity is pretty significant. And we finally have gotten back to the point where we're sort of traveling again. I think people have gone a little bit crazy in terms of, hey, let's travel again. So, and I've noticed my productivity has gone down because I have to get to the airport, I have to pack a bag, I have to, I'm away from home. So it's really poignant, the difference, at least for me, in terms of how we can how effective you can be when you start traveling again. So
No, I agree. I mean, I think quality of life and attracting top talent is another. You want to keep the talent that you've got. You want to attract top talent, and something like a very slick capability from a modern workplace perspective that enables people, to your point, Carm, to work the way that they need to work. I mean, when you sign on to work 8 hours a day or whatever your week is or whatever the expectation is, right? But to be able to have that flexibility, which is technically at a higher productivity value, to be honest, if you're working the 3 hours you need to work and not waiting around for the meeting that you have in Asia Pacific or EMEA at an office waiting for that to happen, I mean, that just is drudgery. But being able to do that, do your thing, and then come back and do those little bits of work, that's amazing. And I think, again, that's a quality of life change that we, honestly, I don't think we ever intended, but we have realized thanks to some of the things that we've been experiencing lately.
yeah, absolutely. And even beyond work, so I teach at university, graduate school, and so I teach kids in Singapore. So I couldn't do that historically. I mean, I teach in Boston. I drive into the university and teach there. That takes a lot of time and a big commitment. But now that you can do it more remotely, it's like I can double the course load. It's crazy.
I think no loss in the experience. If we're doing it right, I think, video is one of those things that was video, but you get up, you get ready, you look at a camera. I think and the capabilities that we have with the additional ways that you can use document cameras and other things like that, it's amazing. I mean, you don't really have to sacrifice anything.
Exactly.
Yeah,
as long as your microphone works.
Yeah, the microphone works, yes, and there is no echo. But I think companies also have to be willing to adopt it from the top down, right? I mean, like we're on video now, right? This is technology we probably wouldn't have done. Now it's everyday life, but where we could be the exception. Many companies out there don't use video. Many people out there don't. I find it funny because I have teenagers and I comment a lot of people, they're on video day in and day out, right? They're always videoing themselves. But the moment the video has to be more formal, they step back, right? It's not as comfortable to them. And I think that's the same in the workplace. I mean, it has to be a top-down approach to enable people to more work together because everyone's at home, right? And I agree. All of us used to travel constantly, and now the thought of traveling, I cringe, right? I don't want to travel. I'm good where I am. I could be productive where I am. But in turn, everyone does get a disconnected feeling. And I think the top-down approach to encourage video, encourage the communication, encourage the connection. I mean, that's where the technology is helping you enable that, but management has to help adopt it too.
So key. And I think that's a good, as we talk about those pivot strategies, right? The way people have different levels of investment into technology that they're calling modern workplace right now, right? I mean, there's legacy capabilities that people are dubbing modern. That's why I kind of joked off. Is it still modern off the start here? What are the things that we're seeing out there? How can we help people kind of make the change? How can they? Is this a piece by piece capability, or is this something that they have to hop all in on? From a business owner's perspective, I think they're like, oh, I've got to upgrade. I got to get everybody cameras and new laptops and all of these other things. Is that how do we help them understand or rationalize that?
I think it was a very quick adoption cycle because of COVID and the pandemic. So I think it forced people to move quickly because I don't know if you remember back, and maybe I'm dating myself, but the old video conference rooms. Remember when we tried to do this 10 years ago or so? Great technology, but it's very expensive and you couldn't really get people to use it effectively. And those rooms would sit idle or dormant for a long time. But I think again, the advances and the sort of the necessity of having to advance the capability much quicker during COVID increased the adoption cycle as well. So technology improved, Zoom came out, for example. I think the PCs could always handle it. So, Moore's law and the, hardware facilitated the capabilities, but I think security changed slightly as part of the disruption, as well as software that could, Zoom, for example, is one of the biggest, best examples. And then I think the adoption, to Joe's point, just started to happen because it's like, boy, we have to do this. We have no choice. Our businesses have to operate. So I think that was a really big boon to helping us to get to the point where we are. So I would say that in a lot of cases, and I do hear these complaints from customers or even internally today, where my PC doesn't work fast enough. When I turn the video on, it doesn't work very well. My network card is slow. So yes, there are, to your point, Jason. I mean, there are probably investments that need to be made in order to give individuals or employees the correct hardware, if you will, or components to be able to connect and be productive.
Well,
Yeah.
go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
No, and I think one of the comments I've heard, and I think we talked about it, Jason, previously, is a CFO wants to save money, right? Their goal is to how do they decrease costs and expenses. But in these recent times, like where experience is key, right? People want that better experience. See, the CEO in this one company specifically said, look, I'll spend the extra if I can get my users more productive and a better experience, because the better experience is not only going to make them, a lot of times it turns to more productivity, but it's also going to keep them long term, right? You're going to lose your employee retention is going to increase instead of losing people just for those little nuances that you could easily fix.
I love that. Yeah. Understanding what you're getting from that investment in the new hardware. It's more than just, it's not that we've just got to pay this money. It's that we realize these benefits from doing it, which are way more than the cost that it would take to outlay. And I've also heard from IT leaders that they are able to, using cloud PC capabilities and those things, that they're able to sweat hardware a little bit longer, because I'm not talking about cameras and those things, but just talking about the capabilities. You can bring your own device and do a lot of really great things with that. So refresh cycles can get longer, and they can still reap the benefits of the modern platform.
Right. And I think that's a really good point, Jason, because I think it's the bring your own device model that sort of was a bit of a pain to organizations initially, but I think it now became a real cost benefit for organizations, because it's like I upgrade my own device, or my iPad or my phone, for example, or even the laptop I'm on today is my personal laptop, but I can still do work on it because it's secured. I can connect in through the VPN, so it can be protected. But I'm responsible for the capital equipment, if you will, because I want it for other things as well. So it's kind of an interesting model, and you can offset those costs, I think, through that mechanism.
Well, I think in an organization like ours, where we've got a lot of really smart thought leader folks, we want to work, to your point, Carmen, we want to work the way that we want to work. So being able to enable that with a platform like this, again, allows us to attract top talent. And that's really key. As a CISO of an organization, I've got to find the balance. Because I hear people say, oh, no BYOD. Well, no BYOD is literally a game stopper for some folks. They're like, no, I've got to have my 3 monitors. I've got to do the things the way that I want to do it. And if that's not the way that I can work, we've got an issue. But I think something like this platform allows, that's what we're doing, to enable this platform at Insight. So it's one of those things where, you can totally change the dynamic, and it's an enabling factor. And again, you realize a lot of other benefits from it.
I think taking it from not only BYOD, but many companies, let's be realistic, right, aren't ready for BYOD. As much as the industry's been saying for years it's coming, it will come, no doubt. I think CYOD is a bigger play. Like Jason, like you said, many people want to pick the device they're most comfortable with, they can potentially be most productive with. And I think the whole aspect of modern workplace allows that. It potentially can allow a user to use any device. It could be an iPad Pro, it could be a Chromebook, it could be a Mac, it could be a Windows device. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't matter, right? It should matter what are they most productive on. And then let me get the work applications, let me get the work environment to them on the device that they prefer. But on the flip side, that I can still secure. So at the end of the day, I still got to understand the security aspects and how it's going to be attacked, where are the misses that are going to be from an end user and a data perspective. But it's doable. CYOD is 100% doable in a modern workplace.
Yeah, and I think maybe to add to that a little bit is, Jason, you brought up the point around VDI. And so it's like the virtual desktop environments is just, if you want to create policies and applications that are ones that should only be used within your organization, you can easily do that and then provide those facilities to be able to protect your users, but also give them the experience that they need in order to be able to perform their job, so as they're, not to say have root access to their local systems, which I think is a nightmare for a lot of people, but it's or for a lot of organizations, but it really gives them a great experience. And we've seen many of our customers use that quite heavily, because it allows them to be able to perform upgrades much more simply, control their licensing costs more efficiently, and you don't have to use as much capital hardware equipment that you're distributing to your employees as well. So it's huge benefits there, I think.
Yeah, I'm on the fence on that benefit. I definitely 100% see the benefit in a healthcare environment and financial VDI. But I'm wondering, I'd like to have those debates with customers, right, and internal colleagues, that devices are cheaper, right? Modern workplace or modern management makes managing those devices from anywhere easier. So, I mean, do the benefits of VDI come into play? I mean, I would like to hear both of your, I mean, not to start a debate, but both of your opinions. VDI is great. And I think as VDI matures, especially cloud VDI, and the prices come down, because I think the price point still makes it still a little distant out. Where does the point of managing a desktop or an endpoint that's very easy compared to a VDI solution where the user still needs some endpoint? Where is that breaking point for you, or one versus the other? Where do you think the breaking point is?
In my opinion, it depends. That's the standard consultant answer, by the way. But there's no macaroni and cheese recipe. I'm famous for saying that. If there were, we would just get, kind of like container units, right? They revolutionized by having the same containers behind those trucks that go on the ships. And when you can predict all of those things, you can make things really, really efficient. We are definitely not at that point, the way businesses operate, even in the same vertical. So I think it depends on how the organization rolls and where they are as to whether a VDI solution versus any other solution or a local solution is going to work for them. I think, being a security researcher nerd, I can trump security on either side of the house here, but it's one of those things if I'm talking from a capability or flexibility perspective, I think there are pluses to both platforms. I'm not gonna say, pick a favorite team here. I'm just gonna say it's awesome to have multiple solutions. And if that's a lame way to back out of a question like that, call me lame. But I'm not gonna pick. I think that both are valid options there. And we don't get to brass tacks, right? To which one what point we're trying to make.
Yeah, I'll swing the other way, I guess. I'll look at it from the perspective of, I believe that over time, installing applications on our desktop environments will be a thing of the past. I think we'll be working mostly in virtual environments. This is remember back when Larry Ellison was talking about the network computer back in the day. I just think from a capacity perspective, from a upgrade perspective, from a security perspective, having the ability to sort of create a virtual environment that allows us to be able to have access to the services that we need in order to perform our jobs would far outweigh the installing specific software that could have a high degree of variability. Of course, the nerds in the room, and I'm one of them, actually might say, I gotta have my own software. But in general, I don't know. I just think I would love to not have to worry about installing software packages and configuring them and updating them and managing them. So, anyways, that's just kind of my perspective. And I took a risk there, so went out there.
No, I think in long term, I agree.
You're wrong. No, I'm just kidding.
That's right.
I think that's where we'll be, but I also think long term, many applications are probably going to be more web based, right? It's not going to be. We won't be installing applications long term, anyways.
Yeah, true. I think the way that applications run is going to completely change.
Right.
And you got me thinking that there's one of the reasons, why aren't we here yet? That's what a lot of people are like. Why aren't we here? Why don't we have self-driving cars? And where are the flying cars we were promised? I think a lot of those things, as I think of that super web-based type stuff, I think where I live, I have dual gigabit connections to my house. I'm a super freak, right? But that kind of infrastructure doesn't exist. And depending on what kind of organization you are, you don't have that. I think we're making some brilliant leaps forward with the satellite capabilities that we have from a bandwidth, from a coverage perspective and other things, in 5G, of course, and even private 5G, where we've got to do it in the middle of nowhere on an oil rig or something along those lines. But again, there's always been kind of this bottleneck, regardless of what the bottleneck is. When you fix that bottleneck, there's another bottleneck. There's always going to be those things in a system. But it is, I think before I kind of make my firm call on one way or the other, it's, I've got to figure out the other stuff that everything's kind of dependent upon. And then they're still going to have the Windows Mac conversation, or you're going to have the people who have the gigantic, I'm one of them. I've got such a high amount of processing that I do locally that I would miss out on, where the data is from an edge perspective, it's right here. And, those are the kinds of things of where's my data at is another big question related to what I've got to do and what I'm using it for. So
I think some of it will eventually come down to to your point, it's like the services, can they be trusted? If you follow along with Web 2.0, 3.0, so Web 3.0 is helping us to get to more of a highly service-based, highly secure environment. Without that infrastructure, though, it's you get kind of nervous about trusting the internet as your primary medium for communication. But I think the other point, you've got dual network connectivity. What do we have in terms of SLA? Like my local provider, if they go down, I'm stuck. I can't do anything. So I might want to say, geez, I need some kind of backup, and installing software on my laptop is one way to do it, or else I'm dead in the water. So yeah, maybe we need to get to the point where there are guarantees or SLAs that are provided by these providers, or the redundancy at least is available for us. So it'll be interesting, because that's kind of the way the cloud works today. When you have direct connects into the cloud environment, you have redundancy because you can't afford to be down. But for an individual, it's not quite that way. And I think that does impact the modern workforce.
Yeah, but I think as 5G rolls out, your second means is in your pocket, right? We're all carrying a cell phone in our pocket that's 5G and has tethering available. So I'm still laughing that Jason has 2 dual gigabit Ethernet connections in his house.
It's coming really handy. Even for this show a couple of weeks ago, one went down and I switched the other one. It's like game on.
Right. But think of how much we tether off our phones, and as 5G gets more prominent, it's going to be faster than most home internet connections. scary enough.
Yeah. That's a really good point. It's like, yeah, maybe that is the wave of the future. That I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if 6G is going to be that significantly better, for example. But yeah, it's a interesting option. Although there is a securitization of that as well. Don't forget.
It'll be 5G.
Yeah, we need to realize 5G before we go to 6G.
Well, come on, we need better bandwidth.
Yeah. True. So, kind of to wrap it up, guys, if we've got, from the business leaders out there, and by the way, we love you guys out there. Please keep contributing comments and suggestions for shows. We're happy to cover whatever you guys would like. But for the folks out there that are kind of have been toying around with the next step in their modern workplace journey, what are some of the encouraging words that we've got from a closing perspective for them? Because it gets a little daunting. There's a lot of capabilities that exist out there now.
Yeah, I think my piece of advice I hear from many customers is take a step back and just think of what is possible. Technology moves faster than we can keep up with once you go to the cloud. And many people we speak to are they're very, not going to say narrow focus or blinders, but they're used to their environment. And if you take a step back and just realize what's available to you today from a technology standpoint, you could drastically increase end user experience, increase self-service, and more importantly, increase security in the blink of an eye, right? With what technology is available outside of what's on your on-prem today.
Agreed.
Yeah, I would say to that point is understand your workforce. So understand what they need in order to have a good experience, to be productive, but also to enjoy their work. Because if you provide them with those facilities, then the retention, Jason, the point you brought up earlier, will be significant, because it's a really competitive technical market out there today. And in order to maintain the employees that you have, you want to make sure that you're providing them a good experience, and one that's seamless, but also productive and enjoyable. I hate to say that word enjoyable, because it's work, but I think that with the environments that we've been describing, at least the ones that we have set up, I think for me, I really like my workspace. I enjoy doing working here.
Yeah, and just to add real quick to what Carm said is, I think what businesses have to realize, whether it's CEOs, CIOs, is the benefits of modern workplace are to the business. A lot of times, it's not as much to IT, the benefits and the experience, it's to the business. So what in the conversations we may have, they may not be directly impact IT and make their day-to-day easier, better, but it's going to drastically improve your end user's experience. And that's one thing to keep in mind, because it's not a one-to-one in the business.
No, I love that. And that's a great thing to kind of sum up. And I also think, you know, from what I'm extrapolating from what both of you said, is this is not something that you just do. You don't just buy the big set, check all the boxes and push it out. It's, you really have got to, I always say, know thyself. You've got to know what you're trying to solve for. You've got to know the requirements that you have and meet the, and across the board, not the requirement of save money, but the requirements of your end users, your security requirements, your compliance requirements. And again, nothing, there's no tech that does that for you. That's something that you've got to do. When you do that, and you know, and it's the same with the developers, right? If security's in the requirements, security's in the product, but if it's not in there, it's not. And I think that's one of those things is, regardless of how you're jumping into something, do it with a plan is 100 times better. And that's why we've got folks like this, you know, on our team to be able to cover all these angles and to be able to help you make good decisions. So I appreciate what you guys do out there for clients, and we appreciate you guys out there for watching. So thanks so much. If you want to know more about what we do at Insight, please visit us at solutions.insight.com, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.